The Commission on Presidential Debates is announcing a new rule for the final showdown between President Trump and Joe Biden, and it's happening just days ahead of Thursday night's debate. Each of 6 debate segments will now begin with one candidate's microphone muted, while the other gets 2 minutes of uninterrupted speaking time. Open debate with no muting will follow each candidate's initial statements, but any interruptions will count toward that candidate's total allotted speaking time. The Trump campaign criticized the change, and the president this morning took the issue with the debate not focusing on foreign policy.
This was supposed to be a foreign policy debate, and now all of a sudden we're talking about things that are not foreign policy. And frankly, it was a change that they made that was far bigger than the mute button, frankly, but they made a change, and it shouldn't have happened. Now we're talking about other things.
All right, tell us.
It's not appropriate.
Well, in fact, the commission has not publicly said the last debate would focus on foreign policy, only that moderators would decide topics for each debate. The Biden campaign press secretary said this, quote, "The campaigns and the commission agreed months ago that the debate moderator would choose the topics. The Trump campaign is lying about that now because Donald Trump is afraid to face more questions about his disastrous COVID response," end quote. I bring this out to the panel now. Katie.
Well, I think the Trump campaign should be frustrated that the rules continue to be changed without any consultation with their campaign or the Biden campaign. And there's a mute button for both of the candidates, but I'm wondering if there's a mute button for the moderators as well, considering the moderators tend to get a little tangled with the candidates. But when it comes to, the future of this and the Republicans being very frustrated with the way that the moderators and the debate commission have handled these debates, I think that Republicans have to demand that they have a moderator who is not just a, quote, mainstream media journalist, which 93% of them are Democrats, by the way, according to the surveys. Only 7% of them identify as Republicans. They should demand that one debate be moderated by someone from MSNBC and one debate be moderated by a conservative journalist who has credibility in order to even out the playing field, because it all hinges on this idea that there's objectivity, when clearly when you see the connections of some of these moderators, you have Steve Scully, of course, reaching out to Anthony Scaramucci before the debate. I mean, that is not being objective and in the middle of the road. That is taking a side.
Kennedy, do we know why the debate moderator tonight killed her Twitter page? Would it have been in reaction to what happened with Steve Scully, just to take that out of the realm? Is it something that every journalist should do? I'm serious about wanting to know your opinion about this, because I consider myself just a journalist. I'm not a hyphenated anything. Maybe I'm not interesting enough to be that. But killing your account, by the way, Twitter doesn't go away, Kennedy.
What are you hiding if you're shutting your account down? What happened to transparency? What is in those past tweets? Or maybe she was hacked by Steve Scully's guy. It's a real problem here. And in terms of the mute button, I understand that the time will be taken away if, in fact, one of the candidates interrupts the other. And that was a weakness for the president in the first debate. So what happens if Joe Biden doesn't answer a question, or he drones on and gets very boring? Can his time be taken away later on? I think there needs to be a little bit of parity here.
I'm wondering, Jessica, who's keeping the time? Like, what's the timekeeping? Are you comfortable with this? I mean, for either candidate, does this seem fair to cut into free speech and just cut the mic? I mean, what do you think?
I actually think that this unilaterally benefits President Trump because he didn't do well in the first debate with interruptions. It was double the amount of Vice President Biden that did it. All of the polls taken after the debate said that he lost and that people found it really difficult to deal with, that he kept interrupting. So in that sense, this will keep him regulated to his allotted time. He also has been maintaining for quite some time that Joe Biden is suffering from dementia, can't make a coherent statement, that he'll get lost in his own words. So now he gets his way, right? We will see Joe Biden untethered for 2 minutes straight, and the American public will be able to decide whether they think that he has the cognitive abilities to execute the powers of being the United States of America. And so I don't really see why President Trump is complaining about this, except that he loves to throw his toys out of the proverbial pram and say this isn't fair, that isn't fair. The truth is the rules weren't changed. As you pointed out, it was always going to be up to the moderator to decide what the topics were going to be. And frankly, the president should want tonight to be about what's going on domestically, because he has blown so many opportunities to show that he is empathetic about what's going on with the coronavirus, has a plan to get us out of this health crisis and to safely reopen America.
Right.
I think he should be welcoming this decision.
You know, I'm not sure how it worked in all of those Capitol Hill hearings you were in, Trey Gowdy, but sometimes the best questions come in between the gaps. And look, maybe the moderator's perfect. I don't know. I certainly would be perfect if I were moderating, although I'd love a shot at it. But you want to be fair. And sometimes you're listening and you're saying, but wait a minute, that didn't get brought up. I'm kind of with Katie on this. Either there's a mute button for everybody or there's not a mute button.
Well, I spent my entire podcast that came out this morning giving the president debate advice, albeit unsolicited. There will be 70 million people watching, which is, 10 times whatever show he could possibly go on. No one likes it when the rules are changed at the last minute, and no one likes a biased referee. But this is your last best opportunity to persuade the most amount of people. And unless there's a rule against preparation, and I don't think there is, then you should be spending the next 2 days preparing to spend 75% of your time talking about what you've done and what you hope to do, and then you can save your critique and your questions for Joe Biden for the very end. He has a magnificent opportunity Thursday night, but I think he needs to perform differently from the way he did during the last debate.
All right, we'll scoop. Our special coverage of Thursday's final debate between President Trump and Joe Biden begins with Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum, hosting an in-depth preview before the candidates take the stage. Keep it right here for post-debate analysis as well. And it all begins at 6 p.m. Eastern on Fox News Channel FNC for the cool kids. 6 days later, the Biden campaign has yet to deny a bombshell report about Hunter Biden's alleged emails and the questions they may raise about his overseas business dealings. Do voters deserve an answer before they go to the polls?
There are more questions now about Joe Biden and foreign policy, whether he's compromised by communist China, that should be asked and answered. The mainstream media is in Joe Biden's corner trying to prop up a bad candidate.